there was a scientific department from the Bundestag that had some files and had made some research. There's this sometimes need to rebrand, to make a new cover of certain aspects of the field. When the data speaks for itself, it's easier to attack the speaker, to attack the person. We come to a point where information is recycled because we are talking always about the same thing. Different witnesses, but the same information.
Welcome to another talk about UAPs, which is concerned with the European part of it. And today I'm here with Francisco Mauro Corrêa, who is from Portugal. He is a researcher, speaker, and activist in ufology and exopolitics. He founded the Portuguese Exopolitics Initiative, which works in coordination with Transdisciplinary Center for Consciousness Studies. That research is based at University Fernando Pessoa in Porto. And Corrêa also co-founded the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, also known as ICER as a short abbreviation. And there he now serves as its continental director for Europe. Corrêa works also on other UAP-related things like Project Titan, Stellar, and other endeavors to which we may get during the interview. But for now, let me just welcome Francisco. Hello, Francisco. How are you?
Hello, Jan. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here, talking to your friends, to your listeners. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you joined me. I will just say to the viewers that actually me and Francisco, we already met a couple of times in Prague on the UFO conference there. And since then we keep in touch as friends. So I actually know quite a bit about your projects and what you are doing. But I would like to firstly ask you the question I ask every guest I have, and that is, how did you get interested in the topic of UAPs or UFOs, and what kept you engaged in this field?
Since my childhood, I was interested in everything related to astronomy and also the possibility of intelligent life elsewhere. And so, for several circumstances, luck, coincidences, I met the pioneer researchers here in Portugal. That led to a good friendship, and we started working together, and that alone helped to open several doors, introduced me to other people, specifically high-ranking military people from the Air Force, the Portuguese Air Force, for instance. And yeah, since then, the network of connections, specifically internationally, grew exponentially. And that led me to work with the production of several documentaries, mainly for the History Channel and the National Geographic. And yeah, and so it's been a roller coaster, interesting in many aspects. And yeah, I feel lucky and very privileged to have gone through all this experience until now.
You mentioned the documentary. It was called UFO Europe, UFO Untold Stories.
Yes, UFO Europe, Untold Stories. Yes, that was the first documentary that I was involved in the sense specifically with the production. And so at least here in Portugal, I was directly involved in terms of helping choose the people that were going to talk, the places where we would record, asking for the official permissions to record in those places, make all the connections. So I was directly involved with the production. And yeah, it was an amazing work.
And I would maybe go even a little bit back. So when you were growing up and researching a bit about this theme because it's interesting to you, what was at that time kind of the stigma about the UFOs? Was there a big stigma, or it was kind of, yeah, we can talk about it, it's just for fun, or it was like more strict view on it?
There is always a stigma, no matter where you're going in the world. So there's always some ridicule, there's always some suspicion, and but here in Portugal, it is interesting because it's almost like a case study because we had two former chief of staff of the Portuguese Air Force that had their own cases that saw UFOs, that participated, involved in experiences, and they talked openly, publicly about it. And one of them allowed for the creation of a sort of a protocol, an agreement protocol of research between the Portuguese Air Force and civilian researchers back in 1980. So that allowed the researchers to go inside the air bases and interview the pilots. So in 1980, that was like pioneer, more or less. So there was, and because in terms of context, we had a 40-year period of dictatorship, and that ended in 1974. And after that, with the society was very hungry for information, for new stuff. And so UFOs were also a sort of a new thing to discover. Although there were some authors in the 60s that published a few books, but still not well known in the general society. And so in the late 80s, there was a flush, an explosion of interest, of curiosity by the people, by the society to engage with the UFO. So there was the first Iberian Congress of Ufology that happened in the Faculty of Economy of the University of Porto. Uh, Hundreds and hundreds of people attended that conference in 1976, I guess. And so there were several publications as well, magazines about about the theme. Eventually, over the 90s, I guess, and the changing, um, well, for instance, although the first chief of staff of the Air Force that opened the doors for research. And then there were two other generals that came after him and allowed for the protocol to remain active. But to the late 90s and the changing of commands, although the protocol was not announced or officially finished, there was less information circulating. And since then, there was, yeah, um, the armed forces became more dependent on the political will, that they were less dependent in the past. And so, yeah, things shut down a little. So, yeah, we still have some stigma, obviously, like everywhere in the world, after the publication of the New York Times article on the 16th of December 2017, that led to the creation of the Galileo project. Würzburg in Germany also has a project. The Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics, where Beatriz Villaroel is, also has a project. So there has been, Durham University also conducted a conference in the UK in May. So there has been a growing openness in terms of the academic world. And so, yes, we see that there has been a little erosion of the stigma, but we still need to fight it, of course.
I'm glad that you mentioned the growing science in of the UAPs in Europe, because we were writing together a week ago or 2 weeks ago about the Würzburg conference, which was taking place online. I heard a few of the talks, and some of them were interesting totally, and I was glad that it was open, and I was like, oh, interesting that this is happening.
Well, it was the third time that happened in Würzburg.
Yeah, I understood. Yeah, and it seems that he wants to have it annually, so I'm very happy about it. I also heard that the Professor Kayal, who organizes it, that this year I heard news that they also started to collaborate with the German airspace to get some data. So it seems it's quite positive. Would you like to add something to this?
It's really interesting given the fact that in the past, in Germany, it was almost like taboo to talk about UFOs. They denied information. They were very skeptical, at least in public, were very skeptical. I remember that my colleague, Robert Fleischer, he was in Prague in at least 2012, I guess, the first conference that we went together to Prague. It was more or less back then that he asked for, yeah, it was exactly in 2008 with the opening of the files from the UK government. It was between 2008 and 2013. The Exopolitics group in Germany, also asked, based on the Freedom of Information Act that they do have in Germany. Not all countries do, but in Germany it also happens to be. And they asked for any files that the government could have in relation to UFOs. And the government said, no, there's nothing to it. And then they discovered that indeed there was a scientific department from the Bundestag that had some files and had made some research. So they asked permission to those files, and they said, based on the Freedom of Information Act, and they said that that specific department was not, how can I say, it didn't need to reply to freedom of information. So the information was still classified. And so they went to court, and the administrative court of Berlin gave them a reason. And so the government needed to deliver those files, but still they went to the upper court, and I mean it was more money, and they eventually gave up. But so that is to show that in the past there was this resistance, and now you see academics more engaging with the phenomena, and specifically studying the physical aspects and detection of the phenomena, which is quite interesting. So they are leading the way in Europe in terms of that type of research.
And so what about your research at the university? What are you focusing on?
In terms of the Transdisciplinary Center of Consciousness Studies, which is a center transdisciplinary, so interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, whatever you may want to call it, using, not focusing only on the natural or hard sciences, but also involving the social sciences, right? So it's not just about physics or mathematics. It can also involve anthropology, sociology, philosophy, history. So there's a combination of different disciplines that can basically paint a wider picture of the phenomena. Okay, and so you want to know about the context. You want to know about the psychology involved in the witnesses, right? So the history of the place, and then you also pick up of course, the measurements in the field. You may collect or try to understand the magnetic field distortions that could have happened. So yeah, combining everything to study a little bit better or understanding the phenomena. And so yeah, again, it's a big team from not only from University of Pessoa, but from several other universities from north to south of Portugal. And again, we have the anthropologists, psychiatrists, historians, mathematicians, physicists, astronomers, etc.
Okay.
And we have that big heritage of the past that are the files from the Air Force. Cases since more or less the 40s. We have cases more or less for every decade since the 40s involving military. Okay, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Every decade has different and interesting cases involving the military.
Okay. And what would you like is the case or one or two case which if I would ask some random Portuguese people that they would probably know that is most kind of stuck in the consciousness of the Portuguese people that they are aware of it?
There are two cases that are more known and are more talked about in the media or documentaries, which is Alfina from 1990 and OTA, OTA from 1982. 1982 involves pilots from the Air Force. It's a 25-minute sighting with a disc-shaped object that behaves similar to the Tic Tac. And yeah, so the pilots saw this object. Initially, he thought it was the bright shining cockpit of another airplane, and then the object just rose to the same altitude and started playing with him around his airplane. And yeah, it played until he said, I'm losing, I will be out of gas, so I need to understand what this is. And he basically tried to calculate an interception with the object. And the object made like a aerodynamic brake and went over his plane and flew away. And so that, because it was witnessed by several pilots, it was something extraordinary. And that led to one of the teams from the university went to the airbase, interviewed the pilots, made all the psychological analysis. It was a very in-depth research, made investigation. And 1 year later, with the help of the general, the chief of staff of the Air Force, there was a meeting with 4 dozen scientists, academics from different universities, with the pilots, and to understand exactly what could be done for the future in terms of research. So one of the things that came from that meeting was the creation of a questionnaire that was distributed for all to all police stations and National Guard stations, and so that any person from the society that could have a sighting could go to the police station, fill the questionnaire, and from then it would be sent to the through the Ministry of Internal Affairs to the university. And so I still have a few examples from like 2001, I guess. I mean, today with the internet, there's no need, of course, but back then was a way to collect inquiries and questionnaires from people. The other case from 1990 was an object that like 6 kilometers from here, early in the morning, children that were going to school, they spotted a round-shaped object, a big one, and they gave the alert, and that object stood for over 50 minutes over that particular village, and people were scared, were frightened, and at a certain point, because many people were out in the street looking at the object that was very low, and then the object suddenly uh, appeared to go to land on the football field. And that led to a few workers that were there. They started throwing stones at the object, and the object went away. So, among the real confusion, all the panic surrounding all those people, there was a reporter that went to his car, pick up a photograph machine, and took 4 photos, still analogic, still with the microfilm. And so that microfilm was sent to the National Laboratory of Engineer, and was also sent to the Air Force and to the National Institute of Meteorological. And so the National Laboratory of Engineers said, okay, the photographs are real. This is a real object. We don't know what it is. The Air Force was asked if there was any NATO exercise that could have some sort of exotic equipment being flying over there, over the skies of Portugal. 1990, so drones were not yet a thing, right? And they said no. The Air Force said, okay, we don't know what it is. And the National Weather Institute also said that they could not identify the object. It was not a weather probe, but they could not understand what it was. So it was also sent. The film was also sent to other image labs in Europe, and also to NASA. Richard Hines, a NASA consultant, said that the object was similar to one that was seen in Texas around that same time.
Hmm.
And yeah, but they could not identify what it was. So those are two interesting cases that are more spoken of in the media, and people in Portugal are more keen to know them.
Wow. So yeah, I understood that because I saw one of your presentation online a few months ago, and I saw that it's really rich cases there in Portugal.
Yeah.
So and most of the Europe is not really aware of it, I would say.
No. Well, because of the language,
Of course.
because we are too small. Eventually, Portugal is on the extreme part of Europe, very quiet, doing their own business, and so it's not that common to 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 have someone talking about their own cases. But again, it's like a case study. The number of well-researched cases, it's quite interesting, and involving the military, and the military being open to talk about them. We also have several cases. I don't think I've talked about them in that presentation, from Africa. Africa is an enormous continent.
Hmm.
There are very few cases that are known internationally. There's the Zimbabwe case for the children, but not much more than that. And we do have, because Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Guinea were part of the Portuguese Empire, so they were former Portuguese colonies. And in the 60s, and specifically in the 60s, the war for independence erupted in those colonies, and so our army was, well, armed forces were all there trying to defend. And so we have several cases involving the military in those areas of Africa. Some of them quite interesting. I think maybe I've talked about one in the northern part of Angola. It is one rich case in '64 involving someone that became part of the command of NATO here in Portugal in years after that episode. And so there are many interesting cases. I mean, I don't know, but there are dozens and dozens of cases involving the military, uh, some of them quite interesting in Africa.
It's very interesting to me. And maybe we can also a bit talk about there's been lots of interesting news around the world and in USA about the Free Eye Atlas, about the hearings that happened last month. And was it covered in your country or not so much? Or
Not so much, at least in the mainstream media. The first hearings that took place in the U.S., they had some coverage here on mainstream media. Specifically, there's one professor of international relations. He's a regular commentator in one of the biggest news stations here in Portugal. He's a regular commentator on nightly news at prime time, and he is more or less interested in the UFOs, and he made a comment or several comments regarding the first hearings that took place, the first two. Specifically, the first two, and when David Grush also came to light, he also made a comment. But since the situation with the mummies in Mexico, uh, he stopped talking about UFOs. He thought it was so ridiculous that he stopped talking about UFOs. So that made an impact. And so yes, this last hearing was not any news. Even the one from Brazil. There was a hearing in Brazil as well last week on the 16th of September in the Chamber of Deputies, Parliament Deputies, and our colleague Tiago Tichetti, who is part of ICER as well, is the national representative for Brazil. He not only was part of the first hearing in Brazil back in 2022, he was also part of this hearing that took place last week. In terms of this hearing, focused mainly on transparency and have the right to have access to files from the government regarding UFOs. So yeah, it was not that. So they gave examples of what was happening in the world. They gave the examples of the hearings that took place in in the US as well, because Brazil sees as the US almost like as his big brother, in the sense that they like to be parts, or they wish they could be as powerful, as great as the US. So they have a very they see with respect the US, and so they gave the example of the hearings as an example of something that was a good example.
Hmm.
Regarding Three Eye Atlas, there was no cover here in the mainstream. I mean, it's so speculative until the moment. It's not, yeah, it's not of interest to the mainstream media.
I was a bit talking, you probably know Georg Boch from Berlin.
Yes,
We
yes.
kind of stay in touch and exchange the news.
Hmm.
And both of us realized, so in Germany and also in Czech Republic, that the only thing that came up from this hearing that got covered at least a bit in the news We had one article in Czech Republic, and Georg, he told that there are quite a few, about the case when the missile came and tried to get the UFO, that this was something that was reported and noticed. And the free atlas actually was a bit covered, but more like, more like kind of the like interesting thing, not like a serious news, so yeah.
Well, but that video that they showed, the missile that impacted the UFO, when the UFO just like it stood on its route, on its path, a few debris that kept going, also following the UFO. Well, what can we say about it? Right? It's strange, but we cannot say anything about it.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, it's so unconclusive that it's not of real interest to the mainstream media.
I guess, yeah. And maybe I can ask you, as you are one of the important heads of the ICER, maybe firstly, you can a bit tell about that organization. As far as I know, it's global, or you are missing some big countries?
It's global in the sense that we have members from 30 countries in 5 continents. Okay? And so it's well represented as far as we can tell. So ICER initially started back in 2018 when there was, and we can speculate that after the publication of the New York Times article, other countries became more interested also in terms of trying to understand exactly what was going on. And there was a Chinese initiative with some members of the Chinese government that promoted a meeting. They called it the Five Continents Forum. They promoted, they paid for it to be to happen in Moscow. And so this was a joint Chinese-Russian initiative. They wanted to have the best, or at least what they considered the best researchers in the world to create this international network and an organization with international representations that would have headquarters in China and basically gather information and okay. So I think they wanted to have people from different parts of the world, and specifically the US, to feed them information about UFOs. Then came the COVID, the pandemic. Things went silent. The Chinese stopped talking, stopped answering any email or phone calls or whatever. And so we decided that as we had already identified several people, several researchers that were willing to be part of this movement, we started having regular meetings during the pandemic, and we came to the conclusion that it would be okay to move forward, to create an organization officially. And they, by unanimous vote back then, we were 27 back then, it was voted that I would be the one to make the registration here in Portugal. So ICER was officially registered at the National Conservatory here in Porto, Portugal, on May 27th, 2021. And yeah, so since then, several things have happened. The big project that we had was Project Titan. So with the aim to try to mimic more or less the initiative of Granada from 1978, where Sir Eric Gary tried to lead an initiative with the UN to create an agency inside the UN to study UFOs. We were asking for the creation of a sort of like we have the Global Economics Forum or the Global Climate Forum. We would have a global UFO forum um, by the auspices of the UN. And so we, because of Roberto Pinotti and his relationship with the government of San Marino, we, back in 2021, with the support of Luis Elizondo, that came to San Marino, we had a meeting with officials of the San Marino government where we presented this project that was envisioned by Paolo Guisardi and Roberto Pinotti. And yeah, so they accepted it. They voted 1 year after there was a petition, and the petition, a popular petition that was voted, was accepted. There's documentation to prove it, signed by the officials. Problem is there is no time frame for it to be implemented. Okay, and so it's a matter of priority. One other thing is that the government unfortunately fell, so it was replaced by another government, and so yeah, again, although they by law need to answer to the people and to the petition, they have no time frame. They don't have a timeline that demands them, that obliges them to say that until the end of
Yeah.
2025 we have to make this happen. No. And so it's almost like ad eternum, ad infinitum. It's a shame, but we are dependent on the political will and the many other priorities that the government may think or find more important to address.
Okay.
We are still obviously believing that it will be possible to do it, but we don't know exactly when.
This is one of the focus of the project. And do you have any other like insights for what could help or what are you trying to help with for the UAP transparency, either Europe-wise or more world-wide?
In terms of the transparency, that, for instance, Francisco Guerreiro tried to do something with when he was part of the European Parliament. He tried to gather attention to that issue. Obviously, it demands coordination between the different organizations and groups, European groups about UFOs. And sometimes that's problematic. Human nature, sometimes people, I mean, there's jealous, there's competition among groups, and sometimes things don't work out together, or personal issues. Because there's one specific person in that group, then we should not work with them, or what else. It's not our vision. We want to work with everyone, of course, and I'm the one. I'm always, and I'm not the only one. I think diplomacy is the best way to reach something in the future, and so I always bet on diplomacy and working together. And yeah, there's big work that needs to be done in that area, but I think it is still possible to do something. You have one specific group that is UAP Coalition Netherlands. They are working behind the scenes in terms of trying to bring something with the European Parliament, and they work in a very specific way, and it's their right, and obviously understand and fully support. They know what they are doing. Um, and so, yeah, step by step, with different initiatives, we will eventually get there.
Okay. And do you have anything else you would like to present from your current work, either at ICER or?
Yeah, we do also. There's a not a new, but well, more or less, the Society for UAP Studies, from Dr. Mike Sifon, who was present in Würzburg. He gave a lecture as well about something that I was planning to talk about also in Prague in November, about the grades of evidence. And he's a philosopher of science from the University of New York. And he, as a scholar, became interested. I think I spoke about Limina in the one of the times that I went to Prague. I think I spoke about Limina. Limina was a big conference that gathered different scholars from around the world to talk about how to address UAPs. It was very interesting and promoted by the Society of UAP Studies that was giving the first steps in that time. That was back in 2023, I guess. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. And so Mike Sifon came to Portugal. Since then, he came to Portugal. He wanted to understand or to meet our group here at University Fernando Pessoa. He enjoyed very much Portugal, specifically Porto. He spent a few months here, living here, and then he decided to move. Uh, and so he went back to the US and then he came. He's now living in Lisbon. Um, and yeah, he was able to pinpoint several scholars from different universities, more Americans, of course, but he's trying to give also an international component for the society. And the aim of the society is to prepare uh, like a curriculum that would focus on the study of UFOs, not about the origin, not to try to explain what are UFOs, but how to study UFOs. Okay. And so involving a multidisciplinary approach like we have at CTEC. And yeah, so I'm currently I was invited to be part of the board. I'm a European director for strategic um, and academic and strategic outreach. European director for academic and strategic outreach. That's my role. And there have been several uh, how can I say, not classes, but lectures from different scholars to address the issue. And yeah, there's a big challenge ahead, but we are on the good on on a good path. Several of the members of the society were in Würzburg. There, Christian Peters is from a political scientist, was there. He's part of the team as well. He gave a lecture. So yeah, Michael Bolander. So yeah, I'm working in different fronts with different projects. Sometimes it's a little bit demanding and suffocating because I don't have time for anything else. But yeah, it's still highly motivating and meeting all these wonderful people and incredible, and then yeah, it's very 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 interesting, and it's a privilege as well, to be part of this network of people.
It feels to me that Europe is getting kind of more engaged in it and more talking about it. I mean, when we compared with the last year that there was the thing that Guerrero led the meeting, it was like one thing and loud, but now there are happening many different things, smaller things. Also, there's an upcoming Soul Symposium in Italy and so on. So I think I am quite optimistic right now. But maybe as one of the last questions, what are you excited now about, or what would you like to see happen?
What I would like to see happening, more openness from the European Parliament. I would about transparency, uh, about defining rules and guidelines for reports. Um, I would love to see a decent academic curriculum to study the subject. I would like to see a continuation of the erosion of the stigma and be society be more open to the discussion and bringing new people and new ways of thinking to the field. Um, I would like to see more openness from the different groups to work together and to not just look at their own belly and establishing a good network of people and avoid these personal conflicts. And yeah, and uh, I don't think that um, more information is needed in the sense that, I mean, it's we came to a point where information is recycled because we are talking always about the same thing, different witnesses, but the same information. So we need to go a little bit further and in depth in the study. Yeah, of course, there's many challenges ahead, but I see it with in a very positive way.
Yeah, I mean, you said it nicely. There's like lots of data, and I remember that nowadays SkyWatcher kind of stopped gathering the data, the group that is trying to gather the kind of science proof of UFOs, that they have like 20 terabytes of data now. And people were a bit like scared. Why did you stop to do the expeditions and so on? And they were like, but we have lots of data, so now let's make them, academically and scientifically, how to say, researched or based to find out what it is. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think so. I again, Skywatchers try to do almost a rebranding of what others have done in the past as well in terms of summoning or calling for UAP. So there's this sometimes need to rebrand to make a new cover of certain aspects of the field. Um, I don't know if it's a matter of trying to engage more people, trying to wake up um, parts of the community that are maybe more asleep. I don't know exactly what is the strategy, but I feel like, again, it's almost recycling information um, with a new cover. Does it make a difference? I don't know. Uh, you can argue, oh, it's different, it's different. No, it's not. If you go to see in depth, the essence is the same. And so for me, it's not that much relevant in terms of study.
But I mean, it kind of got popular, so it's nice that
Again, yeah, in terms of we live for a popular culture, and what is popular reaches out more people, brings more people. So maybe that's the strategy, bringing more people, bringing more awareness. Okay, for in terms of maybe okay, it's a marketing strategy from the pure view of research, uh, it's not that relevant.
Okay. And what kind of research you think is the
No, I mean, in terms of the overall fields, in terms of
Hmm.
the many aspects of the phenomena, giving new names or new cover or the way people talk to bring more awareness. Again, it's a marketing strategy in terms of communication to bring more awareness. Okay. Uh, uh, in terms of uh, a more pure research approach, doesn't bring anything new to the field.
I mean, I mean, as I understand, you mean that they're kind of very loud project, but there are some like science often is kind of silent, and then
Well,
the
science is silent,
hmm,
doesn't need too much buzz around, right?
hmm,
Because it may lead to speculation, to um, yeah, it's not good. Let's science play its role without the need of too many lights, right? When there's findings to to, to share, okay, there's more certainty, not certainty because in this field it's difficult to, but when there's more acceptance to some aspects, okay, let's talk about them. Um, if not, it's premature and gives space to speculation, and that may lead to stigma,
hmm,
right? Because people are afraid to talk about something that is being ridiculed or is is potentially uh, it may potentially bring ridicule or stigma or whatever. So yeah, it is complex. It is complex, and I don't understand that most people don't understand or don't agree with this from a pure um, uh, activism role. That's not exactly what we want, but there has to be a balance between activism and research and science and communication. So yeah, it's a complex dance that we need to to be involved with to not to make any errors, which is difficult.
yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, and it reminded me a bit like that Beatriz Villaroel, her science was kind of we didn't hear about it, and then she published what she published, and it made an impact, right?
Yeah, Beatriz has been brilliant in terms of defying the the mainstream um, scientific community, if I can call it that, mainstream scientific community. But yeah, again, she is defying the stigma. She is defying uh, the people that prefer uh, to be quiet and yeah, she's defiant.
Hmm.
And she has been she has that Vasco project where we're identifying the vanishing stars, which is quite amazing, and there's much support, and it is evidence based. There's lots of data to it, and so yeah, those findings were well. Of course, there will always be uh, colleagues that will argue against it and will try to say it's rubbish, but the data speaks for itself. So when the data speaks for itself, it's easier to attack the speaker, to attack the person than the data. And that's the deflection is mm, she has been attacked by others. Um, but again, yeah, it's we are living in in an era of a polarizing society. You're with me or against me.
Hmm.
Yeah, it has reflections also in the academia, in the scientific community, specifically in this area, of course. But yeah, she's been doing a great job. She has full support from other colleagues, and yeah, I mean, I can only support her. I mean, she's great, and she has the courage to defy the what is the mainstream concept of things.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to bring this also science aspect to it. Do you want to share anything else, or what people should take a look on? I can also say that in a documentary about the European cases, it is for free on YouTube. So
yeah, you can find it on YouTube. Yes. If you go and try to look for UFO Europe Untold Stories, National Geographic, you will find it. I think all the episodes, and I guess are 7 or 8 episodes, they are there.
So yeah, thank you so much for this talk, and
thank you for the invitation and for being interested on this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot of work that you do, so at least we've covered part of it. Maybe we can carry on sometime later.
Yes, of course. Anytime.
And to the viewers, if you have any questions or some comments, please let us know. And we both of us wish you a pleasant rest of the day.
Yes. Bye-bye.